Hi, I'm Pierce Alexander, and today I'm going to break down my song This Far from my album, The Minutehand.
At last, we'll find my feet again after drinking all the days away. And when the sun goes down, can I find you beside my car?
When I first wrote this song, it started out as just kind of a strange chord progression that I had, and this was before any of the lyrics or anything were written yet. The chord progression took an interesting turn once I added some synthetic drums to the demo, and that kind of ended up giving it this sort of samba-like feel. I'd never really written a song that was in any way considered a samba, so this was pretty new for me. But I'll just play a little bit of the rough demo so you can kind of hear what it sounded like. So this kind of gave it the samba-like feel, and at first it was a totally unintentional thing, but then I kind of started to just go with it once I realized that it had that feel. As you could hear in the original demo, there was originally a sax in there. Once I brought it into the studio, we were about this close to actually keeping the sax, but once we kind of listened to the whole record back, it just kind of felt like it didn't really make sense to have the sax in there, just because it would have been the only song that it would have had sax. Lyrically, the song was kind of about a friend of mine who was going through addiction. I didn't really want it to be a super dark song though, so I ended up kind of taking a different perspective and writing it from that friend's perspective. I almost wanted to make it more of the playful side of it, as weird as that sounds, just because sometimes when you're in that addictive state, you kind of don't want to admit that you're addicted, and you're just kind of acting like you're just having a good time, and you don't know why your friends are kind of not sticking with you anymore, but things are just kind of happening. So the song kind of takes that approach where you're not necessarily at the all-time low stage of it yet, but you're just kind of in that playful, not really accepting that it's happening stage. So after I wrote the intro to the song, I felt like once I got to the verse section that I wanted to go to a different chord progression once I kind of came up with the vocal melody. And so this chord progression is kind of what ended up happening.
Another day lost in the sands of time. Tomorrow tells me you'll drop by.
So I kind of just had the acoustic guitar and my voice. There were definitely more effects on the original demo. I think I was kind of experimenting at the time. We ended up dialing some of that back. I think I was maybe sitting on just that first chord progression for the intro for honestly like a month before I wrote the other parts. And one day I just ended up sitting down in the studio and it just kind of came to me. And then eventually I got to the point where I was at the chorus, and I decided to try something that I hadn't really tried on any of my other songs before, and go totally falsetto for the beginning of the chorus. And then these hits on the drums just kind of ended up naturally happening. Play those real quick.
We'll find my feet again after drinking all the days away. And when the sun goes down, can I find you beside my car? I never thought it'd get this far.
And then it would just go back to the intro. Underneath all of the song, the acoustic guitar was the thing that was constant throughout the song, so that stayed throughout the whole track. There were lots of smaller layers, like we had the piano from the beginning of the song. that stayed through the intro. And even in the final version of the song, the piano stays pretty constant throughout. Like even if you go as far as the second verse, the piano is still in there.
Though your secret will remain unknown.
So you just have the piano doing the quarter notes there. Then what was really cool is in the studio recording, Josh Kaler, one of the producers, had this idea of adding a little synth line in the second verse that was kind of just arpeggiating the chords, but I think it ended up being a really nice texture on top of that.
If you are ivy, can I be your wall? When you've got no place to fall.
And so that kind of added a whole nother texture. As the song progressed, we had a couple verses and a couple choruses, and I had this idea of, in the bridge section of the song, kind of doing a weird effect on the vocal just to kind of create something new to build back into that third chorus section. And so this is kind of what came out of it.
Smiles breaking down. Should've known you'd spin my head around.
That song was really fun with all the vocal harmonies because I got to try some things that I'm not super used to, and I got to just sing some super high vocal harmonies, which were both a little bit nerve-wracking, just that I wasn't going to be able to hit the notes, but also once I got it, it just felt really cool to hear it back and just have a whole new texture that I hadn't really tried too many times before. So ultimately the song just kind of encompasses that feeling of, you know, not really wanting to accept that you're in an addicted state, but you're slowly seeing signs like your friends aren't really there who used to be there, and you're still kind of in that playful state where you're just like, you know, I don't want to like admit that I have this addiction, but I'm starting to realize like things aren't the same anymore for some reason. And so the song just kind of represents that sort of unfolding. I think it was definitely one of my favorite songs to record on the album.